speed with which these messages are sent out and responded to and positions are formulated. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I was happy to hear everything you were saying about what Mizzou is doing now, but I'm wondering what, from an institution standpoint, can be done to prove to students of color that this time it's different. So I'm a grad student at the University of Michigan right now, which has had its own fair share of racial tension over the years. And the institution as a whole is currently going through a diversity, equity, inclusion, strategic planning and implementation process. But it's been met with very broad skepticism from students on campus because people have had these experiences years after year, year after year after year. They've gone through different diversity plans that haven't worked and haven't changed their lived experiences. So what is Mizzou doing and what can other institutions do to really make this time be the time that real change occurs?
Well, the first thing is to engage the students. In everything that I described and everything that we are going to be developing in the future, our students are actively involved on every task force and every committee that is designing these programs. I'm convinced that our students are so bright that they will understand what can and cannot be done if given the information that we have to deal with. So first engage them, bring them in, respect their opinions, talk to them, and I think they will then understand the limits of our ability to make immediate change. But secondly, you really have to do it. Often these strategic plans get put on a shelf. You know, they satisfy the media and they satisfy somebody for a couple of weeks, and we go back and we celebrate ourselves and don't do the work. So it's very important to set up the infrastructure and the mechanisms and put people in place who are dedicated to implementing that plan, and then have somebody at the top who will hold them accountable. And that's what we're trying to do at Mizzou. I think it'll work. We've got a chancellor, a CDO. My CDO, Dr. McDonald, is also serving as interim CDO for the Columbia campus. So the system and the campus are working hand in hand on this strategy to move the issues forward. I can't guarantee anyone that it will work, but I can guarantee you that we're going to put every effort and every resource that we can spare into that effort. And the students, knock on wood, this is wood, right? The students seem to be giving us the time that we need to get it done, but we'll see. Uh-huh. You were there. Yeah.
Hello, my name's Amy Tran, and I'm coming from an organization in Dallas called Education Opens Doors. In Dallas, we're really just starting to have the conversation as a community about race and racial tension and the history of racism in our city. I feel like I'm so loud. What advice do you have to a lot of organizations that work with students about college fit and thinking about what the experience for a student of color will be on campus once they actually get into an institution? May that be an institution that provides support for students of color or one that does not?
I think college fit is very important. And I think that the climate on college campuses is a significant issue in that question of college fit. So I think it's something that needs to be talked about, and colleges that truly want to embrace a diversity and inclusion and equity framework are probably the ones that you should be steering your students to. If you know of a college that is not committed to this effort, then I think you're putting your students into a precarious position. And it's not really going to be helpful in terms of their long-term success if they go to a school where they aren't respected, where they are marginalized, and they are subjected to the kinds of indignities that I suffered in the 60s and that our students on our campus suffered, I think to a much lesser degree, but suffered nonetheless last year. Yeah, so college fit is critical. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think I was more so coming from the perspective of how do folks have open conversations in their organizations about prioritizing that as a conversation for students? I do agree it is very important to have that, but I think in my experience, there is a hesitation to even bring up race in some context, right? Just because of the discomfort, perhaps some of our college access providers don't come from experiences where they've experienced that type of discrimination or racism. So it's more from that perspective, how do we can begin, if we have not yet, open up that conversation in our organization as a priority to include that in the framework of how we work with our students.
Okay, I got you. That's a matter of education. At Mizzou, right before I retired, I was on a faculty council committee on race relations. There were 12 of us, 3 white males who were known to view diversity and race relations and equity issues as nonsense. There's not a problem. There was myself and a couple of other African American professors, a couple of Hispanic professors, and a couple of African American students, one of which was Jonathan Butler, our hunger striker. We spent the entire summer meeting once a week for 2 hours around a table talking about these issues. Fortunately, all of us committed to being honest and forthright in the conversation. In that period of time, at least among that group, everyone came closer to the middle with an understanding of the history of racism and marginalization and of the fact that it was a problem. What we're trying to do is replicate that kind of a process system-wide. We haven't quite figured out how to do that because we really don't have that many people of color to populate that many small groups without overburdening them in their duties. But in terms of the leadership teams on campuses, I think that's an excellent way to get them to understand the significance of this problem. If you take people through this country's history, the history of white supremacy, the history of slavery, the history of Jim Crow, and how all of that affects people's lived experiences today, and the need to correct that problem, I think most intelligent university administrators will get it. They haven't had to face it. We're notorious in avoiding that conversation in this country. It certainly isn't in most textbooks. It certainly isn't the first thing anybody wants to talk about, but we have to talk about it. Bring in experts, have retreats, have seminars for your leadership team, just to acclimate them to the nature of the problem. I think with that, you're going to get them much closer to an understanding of the need to do something. If that doesn't work, just point them to Mizzou and say, you want that to happen to you? Thank you.
Hi, President Middleton. This is Drina. I am also a proud alum of Mizzou. I don't know if you remember me. I'm the founder of Black Women Rock.
M-I-Z.
ZOU.
Thank you. I remember you.
Yay! All right. So my question is, I am from Chicago, so we know that this is happening all over the world, especially Chicago with the violence, and I don't know if you all know, but there was another unarmed black man shot on Friday. So my question is, what approach should we take as educators and just as people to have these difficult conversations with our students, from middle school to college students, about what's going on, not only on college campuses, but also around the world?
Well, you just got to be honest and open and forthright in the conversation. You can't avoid the conversation. They are having the conversation. The students are tweeting about it. They're meeting about it. They're strategizing about how to overcome it. And they need you to be involved in that conversation with them in order to try to develop some solutions. Like I said, what better place than a university or education generally to talk about these issues and develop some solutions? We all know it's a problem, and none of us has the solution. I think conversation, difficult dialogues is absolutely necessary, and just do it honestly and forthrightly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hi. So my question is regarding administrative diversity, and 87% of administrators, particularly university presidents, are white. And I'm gonna be real, like being around the conference in the last few days, most of the executive directors of college access orgs are white. And I'm just wondering about your perspective as a person of color, whether or not you feel like that lends something to how well you can do your job, and about, is it important and should we approach administrative leadership and diversity in the same way that we approach undergraduate diversity? Like, should we be applying affirmative action policies? Is it something that we should make a priority to diversify the leadership pipeline? I just graduated from Stanford, and while I was there was a student movement about faculty diversity, and during that time, they picked a white president, and a white like scientist president, and I think that it definitely felt like a betrayal on the student end. And so I'm just wondering about how, one, your placement has been received, and then the impact of diversifying the leadership pipeline as a whole.
That's a complex question.
Good thing you have 5 minutes.
My appointment has been received very well, very enthusiastically in some circles. Not so well in others. But I think I've pushed through that, and I've managed to gain the respect of most people. Fortunately, I was at Mizzou for 30 years professionally and 7 years as a student. A lot of people knew me. A lot of people liked me, trusted me. So I was received well. We had an African-American president before me. I don't think he was received quite as well as I was, but he was an outsider, and that was 10, 12 years ago. No, it certainly, diversity in the leadership positions is extremely important at universities and in agencies like yours. But I don't want to use that to suggest that people from majority backgrounds cannot do the job. I mean, I think, as I said in my remarks, I had some very, very supportive professors in my undergraduate and law school years who were not of color, but who really kept me in school. They understood what I was going through. They were responsive to me. They were concerned about me. One of them is now my next-door neighbor. Used to play golf with him, but he's getting up there in age now. So I don't think race, national origin, ethnicity is critical in every hire, but certainly organizations should be looking to diversify leadership, faculty, and other positions of relative power in the organization. It brings a perspective, it brings legitimacy on the issues. The other thing is, you can get diversity, and that person may not have the wherewithal to really push the issue. I know a lot of cases where people get in these positions and then get very comfortable with the status quo. So sometimes simple diversity is not the solution. Get the right people, get them in the right positions, and empower them to speak truth to power, and you may you may make some progress. Excuse me.
I think we are out of time.
Okay.
Got some,
One more.
one more. Oh, sorry, we have someone who's been at the microphone.
Somebody said she was the first one up.
Sorry.
I've been standing here for a long time.
Go ahead.
So I just wondered, what are your thoughts on Jay Ellison's comments? He's the Dean of Undergraduate Students at University of Chicago, and he mentioned there are no safe spaces here or trigger warnings when he was voicing his opinion on not wanting to shield students from free expression.
I have a problem with safe spaces. I think a university is where you come to share controversial ideas and grow from it. And if the safe space is to shield you from ideas with which you don't agree, I don't agree with that. Trigger warnings. I suppose trigger warnings make sense in the context of there are people who have sensitivities that, if triggered, will interfere with their learning experience. And if you know that you are delving into an area that is likely to cause that kind of trauma on a student, it's probably appropriate to warn the students that you're about to do that. I just don't know how to describe that. I mean, if talking about subject matter that might upset someone requires a trigger warning, I don't know about that. I think the discussion we're advocating about the history of slavery and white supremacy might upset some people. Do I have to warn them that I'm about to talk to real history? I don't think so. And I'm a lawyer. I'm a firm believer in the First Amendment, and I'm just built to defend people's rights to express themselves freely. So I'm somewhat conflicted on both those issues, and I've got a committee of distinguished law professors on my campus working on those issues right now, and I'm anxious to see what they come up with. I hope I don't have to reject their recommendations. Thank you all.
Thank you, President Middleton, for your leadership and your insight on these issues. Thank you, President Middleton, and thank you to all of the members for your questions. I'm sorry we couldn't get to everybody's question, but let's keep the dialogue going, which will be critically important in all of our spheres of influence. You will be served lunch now. A couple of other housekeeping items. If you are interested in one of the 7 amazing dine-around options we have for this evening, you only have until 1:30 to sign up using the survey section of the app. Sign up for your dine-arounds by 1:30. And then like with yesterday, we are going to be serving dessert after lunch outside. Can I just have your attention for one more minute, please? Just a couple housekeeping items. Sign up by 1:30 in the survey section of the app if you want to attend one of the dine-arounds. They have to get the counts into the restaurants. And Dessert will be outside again today, not here at lunch. They need to reset the room, so please, it's a great concept. You can work off the calories while you're eating them by standing up and networking and conversing outside while you enjoy your dessert. Sessions start again at 2. Enjoy lunch. Thank you.